To American Amnesia. I am your host, Cliff Garner. I was originally going to do some other things, but I did have this on my screen or my radar, and that I was planning to do something along those lines, although events kind of shaped the way I'm looking at it right at the moment. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to look at some things about Sadiq Khan, he is the mayor of London, who a lot of the snowflakes are just kind of gaga about, I guess. It's all fake news. Oh, really? Well, you know, the thing is that it's not. It's been something that's been noticed, that he has certain ties to certain terrorist groups, and that he has had these ties, and this has been pretty much the case all along. Furthermore, his approach to Sharia is very similar to that of Erdogan's. He's doing a lot of dog whistling, and at the same time he's kind of framing certain things in more acceptable language. He's couching his language very carefully. The good example of this would be when he was trying to get those bathing suit models off of the buses and stuff in London, that he was doing it for more of a kind of a morality kind of thing, you know, family oriented stuff. And that's really not the case. Actually, he is doing it for Muslim reasons. He's been hanging around with the crowd with all the headscarves and all that, the burqas, the whole shebang. And that is a fact. He is doing that. And he reminds me very much of Erdogan when I first arrived in Turkey, in which he was couching things like a cigarette smoking ban inside the bars and stuff. They were smoking inside the bars in restaurants when I first got there. And they banned it, I don't know, sometime after or around the first year I'd lived there. And the reason he did that wasn't because he was concerned about people's health, although he said that. It wasn't that. It was quite very simply that he did it because he believes that this will bring about the righteous generation. That's his goal. That's what he's trying to pull off. Well, Sadiq Khan is the same way, and he does the very same thing. He is an Islamist who is presenting a nice face, and just like Erdogan did at first. And the fact is that I don't think we can trust him. I don't think we can trust him. I haven't thought we could trust him. I have no problem with Muslims. I know so many Muslims. I've dated Muslim girls. They weren't strict Sharia law types at all. I wouldn't probably get along with them, but there are a lot of girls that wear headscarves that aren't nearly as conservative as Mr. Erdogan would like to think. There's a lot of winking and nodding going on over in Turkey, and that's a big one. Lovely ladies. But the thing is that it is not things aren't always what they look like. And things aren't always the way they seem. And of course, there is such thing as deception. This fellow is practicing taqiyya. I'm saying that because I've watched a master of it. Mr. Erdogan is a master of taqiyya, which is holy lying. He's pushing his agenda, and because his will is in the jihad, the spreading and the dissemination of the faith, whether by force or by other means, he is, in his own mind, completely justified. This is similar to certain of the Christian cults that practice holy lying as well. But there's also other cults, the Moonies, for example. They practice this themselves. They try to come off as a Christian group, but they're clearly not a Christian group. Their Christ is quite another person, namely Sun Myung Moon. So that is something that you need to be aware of. And he has, and this Mr. Sadiq Khan does have his own agenda, and he is promoting his faith politically. And there's not much else I can say outside of come to some of the evidence. Now, I've lined up a few articles here. I'm going to try to keep this fairly short. And I may only read one or two, because they all kind of touch into the same stuff sooner or later, and that they're all actually not too far apart. One of them, the first one, but I'll list all three of these. That way they can be accessed and checked. I mean, it presents three different perspectives. The first one I have here is the Evening Standard, exposed Sadiq Khan's family links to extremist organization, and it dwells on his brother-in-law. The second one here also does, and this was first written in February of 2016, and it was updated just fairly recently. Well, no, not recently, I'm sorry. I misread. The 6th of April 2016, so it's a little bit newer, but not much. This third one I have here is a longer title. It's from the Daily Mail. This is much more recent, and actually just not too long ago. Sadiq Khan isn't fit to be mayor of London because of his links to extremists, declares Theresa May, who is the head of the Tories, the Conservative Party. Declares Theresa May, come on, as a string of senior Tories turn up the heat on the Labour candidate. This really didn't necessarily harm or hurt them, I don't think, but at the same time, the timing with the bombing, or the knife attacks, excuse me, that occurred in London, as well as the suicide bomber in Manchester not too long before, I think probably hurt Theresa May a little bit. But I think really, from what I'm looking at, gathering from the analysis that I've been, seeing, that really she hurt herself more by attempting to go after hate crimes and claiming to go after these extremists over the internet, and this desire to censor the internet doesn't really fly, and people I think were pretty worried about that. Labor is still irrelevant. They picked up some votes they might not have gotten otherwise, but they've got a long way to go. And no, you really can't look at Labor as being the Bernie Sanders of England. It's quite different. people are always looking for these equivalences, and they end up being false more often than not. As far as the translation of one party to the next when you go across national borders, and there is that cause for concern where Khan is concerned in comparison with Erdogan. But the thing is it holds up, and the problem is that he is doing the same things. He's actually masking it more as a leftist. Now with Erdogan, when he first came to power, he was couching it more in conservative terms. Although when Obama got elected, he definitely jumped on the bandwagon on things like global warming and that kind of thing, or climate change, or whatever you want to call it. And he has his hand out too, by the way. But any rate, that equivalency does actually, it's rather close with Erdogan and Sadiq Khan. The way they go about it is a very similar thing, and that's kind of alarming. And one of the things I point out, and I just wish I had some of the resources I had in Turkey, because as far as it went, they were a little better on demonstrating this. But the fact is that the cluster of ideas that emerged from the Muslim Brotherhood were embraced by certain people in Turkey in legal political parties, and that pattern of acceptance of ideas and promotion of the same types of ideas, similar ends and everything else in mind, is demonstrable. And that connection, there is a very solid connection between the parties and the factions within parties that produce the AKP, the AKP in Turkey, come directly from parallel ideas being promoted in Turkey and being brought into the political sphere. And in Turkey, they were going to execute it in an electoral way, and that's kind of a key thing, because the Muslim Brotherhood was actually tending towards more of a revolutionary focus. They were more concerned with seizing power than maybe accruing it through the electoral process. But when it came down to it, it really didn't matter which way they went. They were willing to go either way. And one of the things that happened with the whole political situation during the Obama administration is that the Muslim Brotherhood was making incredible gains. And this actually had the Saudis rather upset. And when Turkey offered to go into Yemen to back up the Saudis, this is in 2015. The Saudis very quickly said, no thank you, we really don't want you down there. And the reason is they didn't want to have Turkey on two fronts with them. They don't trust Turkey, and this whole situation is very quickly unraveling, in which you're seeing a realignment with the Muslim Brotherhood, with Iran of all countries coming to agreement with Turkey and Qatar, and that this process of backing the Muslim Brotherhood has had great consequences, because in Egypt the government of what was his name? Nursi. Nursi was the Muslim Brotherhood leader who attained presidential power in Egypt. And he was overthrown by the military because it was taking the whole government down in a very bad way, and the military intervened. This is Erdogan's greatest nightmare, that he would be taken down in a similar way, and that he completely flipped out when that occurred. The Egyptians. Well, they reluctantly went along, but they weren't very happy with Nursi, and he was not a very good leader, and so Egypt and Saudi Arabia and the UAE are completely against the Muslim Brotherhood rising. So now we have a situation in the Middle East where this realignment might have some pretty heavy realignments, a lot of heavy implications. It could change a lot of things, and I've been watching and waiting to see if anything would happen to promote the idea of Gog and Magog in the Bible as a prophecy. And this is a possible scenario that could bring in the players that would entail that, which would be namely Turkey and Iran and Libya, Sudan, actually not Ethiopia proper, but Sudan, ancient Nubia. And what else? Yeah, Libya, Sudan, Turkey, Iran, and then probably some other, some of the stand countries become involved. Watch what happens with them towards Israel, because Erdogan does want to go after Israel. And whether or not you believe in the prophecies, it's entirely your belief and your belief system and everything. I'm saying this could come about, and I've been talking about this for many years. I was living in Turkey from 2008 until 2014, and I left in the summer of 2014. I arrived there in January of 2008, so I lived there 6.5 years, and I saw quite a bit of the country, and it's fascinating. Wonderful people. Love the people. Love the people, and I love the East in particular. The East is what wonderful food, but great folks, and an incredible history, just incredible all over the country, and they're ruled by a man that has managed to seize power and not necessarily have even 50% of the populace behind him. But that's the rules in Turkey. So there you go. So at any rate, but Sadiq Khan is a person of concern. These are facts. He has connections to certain people that pretty scary. So I'll start here with this one, the Evening Standard article. Exposed Sadiq Khan's family links to extremist organization. Exclusive mayoral contenders' former brother-in-law took part in Trafalgar Square rally, and that was a bit back. The links of mayoral hopeful Sadiq Khan's former brother-in-law to one of UK's most notorious extremist organizations are revealed today. Come on. Top London lawyer Maqbool Javed was married to the Labour Party candidate's sister Farhat Khan until 2011. In the 90s, Mr. Javaid took part in events in London with the extremist group Al-Muhajirun, while he was Mr. Khan's brother-in-law, having married the Labour Party's politician's sister in 1989. He appeared alongside some of the country's most notorious hate preachers, including the now banned cleric Omar Bakri in 1997 and 1998. Mr. Javaid's name appeared on a fatwa in 1998 calling for a full-scale war of jihad against Britain and the U.S. Mr. Khan attended a conference alongside his then brother-in-law in 2004, but today said that he has had no contact with Mr. Javaid for at least 10 years, and that he has always condemned extremism. It depends on who you call extremists. He has had as his guests in London people from Iran, leaders from Iran, from Hezbollah, from the Muslim Brotherhood, from Hamas. I mean, just all these groups. They have been there, and he has sat down and talked to them. Al-Muhajirun, founded in the 80s by Bakri and another well-known radical London preacher who cannot be named for legal reasons, became notorious after praising the 9/11 atrocity. The 7/7 bombings, those were in London, and other Al-Qaeda acts of terror. It became a banned organization in 2005. In literature from the 90s, on which Mr. Javaid is described as a spokesman for the group, it calls on Muslims to fulfill their Islamic duty and launch jihad physically, financially, and verbally. One video of the Trafalgar Square rally in 1997 shows him rallying against the against regimes of the Kufr, which actually is subhumans, and a derogatory term for non-Muslims, pagans basically, but it has some other implications. He calls for the reestablishment of an Islamic state, berates the West for introducing the diseases of nationalism, of racism, of secularism, and urges followers to further the faith until Islam becomes dominant or they kill me. In his animated address at the foot of Nelson's column, a crowd can be heard shouting Allahu Akbar. His name appeared next to Bakri's on the fatwa declaring war on the UK and US in 1998, the year he attended another event at Trafalgar Square. That year was the year, by the way, that Al-Qaeda and several other groups also declared war on several countries. That was the US, UK, Turkey at the time, Russia, China, Yugoslavia. And I'll tell you what, Yugoslavia is pretty much toast now. And very quietly, Mr. Erdogan has been just very quietly crushing out the last bits of Yugoslavia, Serbia. His name appeared next to Bakri's on a fatwa declaring war on the US and UK in 1998, the year he attended another event in Trafalgar Square. Mr. Javaid, 54, now a partner of the law firm Simmons, Muirhead, and Burton, denies ever being a spokesman for the group, says he never authorized his name being included on any of the group's literature or the fatwa, and condemns its contents. Takia. Today he says he regrets his Trafalgar Square speech and added he was naive at the time. The former London School of Economics students now has links to the controversial advocacy group Cage, according to his Facebook page. He is friends on Facebook with the research director Asim Qureshi, who described Islamic State butcher Jihadi John as a beautiful young man. He is also a Facebook friend of Cage director Muazzam Beg, a former Guantanamo Bay detainee released without charge following his arrest traveling to the Middle East. Mr. Javaid says he has not used Facebook for years, and adding that it does not reflect his friendships. Yeah, sure. In another video unheard by the Standard, he appeared in a 2012 broadcast by The World This Week and was described as a patron of an organization called Cage Prisoners. The group, which morphed into Cage, has been linked to the late Anwar al-Awlaki, an al-Qaeda figurehead who praised the killing of Western civilians. And he was the one that Mr. Obama said that he had the right to kill anybody, anywhere around the world, including U.S. citizens, without judge, trial, or jury. He made himself into judge, jury, and executioner with al-Awlaki. Now, you know, it's not like that I'm all for, you know, letting jihadis go. But he targeted that man, killed many other people to get him, and the man was a U.S. citizen. That's not good. Matter of fact, that's not constitutional. He doesn't have that power. And if you think that he has that right to that power, then just consider that Trump does too. Now, I say neither one of them does. That you snowflakes, you got to start thinking. You got to start thinking really hard about what you've done and what you're doing now. Anwar al-Awlaki, an al-Qaeda figurehead who praised the killing of Western civilians. Mr. Javad said he was never a patron of Cage Prisoners and appeared on the program as a human rights lawyer. Yeah, likely story. He also appeared on the 2012 broadcast alongside the brother of Syed Talha Ahsan from Tooting, who in 2013 pled guilty after being extradited to the U.S. for providing material support terrorism by running a pro-jihadist website from London. His co-defendant was Babar Ahmad, for whom Mr. Khan campaigned to try to stop his extradition to the U.S. before being elected as an MP in 2005. This is... he's done a lot of this kind of thing. He still is doing this kind of thing. Alright. Ahmad later admitted terrorism charges. Mr. Khan attended at least 4 meetings organized by the Stop Political Terror Group, campaigning for Ahmad, also a Tooting resident, and spoke outside Woodhull Prison alongside Adnan Siddiqui, now a prominent member of Cage, in 2004. He was also billed as a speaker at 2 similar events alongside Ahmad's family in February and March 2005. He shared a platform with Ahmad's father at an event in Parliament as recently as 2012. Mr. Khan said that he supported the campaign for Ahmad to be tried in the UK, and then his role as a human rights lawyer and chair of human rights group Liberty. According to records, Mr. Javad and Ms. Khan registered their marriage with Lambeth Council in 1989. However, it is understood the pair divorced in 2011 after separating 5 years earlier. Mr. Javad lived with Mr. Khan's sister and their children in a £500,000 semi-detached house in Norbury, South London. That's probably what? Probably worth about, I'm going to say, about $700,000. Right there about. He was formerly head of litigation services of the UK Commission for Racial Equality, now the Equality and Human Rights Commission, and has been described by the Legal 500 Journal as a highly respected discrimination law practitioner who is business-minded. Mr. Javad, former secretary of the Society of Muslim Lawyers, was billed as a speaker at several Muhajirun rallies, and his name appeared on several press releases and leaflets for the group during the mid-90s. Some call for the domination of the word by Islam. Yeah, typical language there. And for all Muslims to dismantle Western governance and establish an Islamic state, or Khilafah. Yeah, not a caliphate, but a Khilafah. but it is a related term. Other literature refers to the West as evil, berates Israel as a cancerous entity, and urges Muslims not to vote in elections. Mr. Javaid is billed as a speaker at events outside London, mosques, and literature. He claims he did not know at that time that al-Muhajirun was a hate group and never authorized his name being included in its literature. Yeah, sure. Al-Muhajirun has for years been linked to a number of extremists, including Lee Rigby's killer, Michael Adebolajo, who attended meetings and demonstrations, and Abdul Wahid Majid from Crawley, who became the first British suicide bomber in Syria in February 2014. Nice company. Rigby was the British soldier that was murdered, openly butchered, actually, in the streets by a couple jihadis, and this Michael Adebolajo being one of them. And they just really kind of sat there and waited and said they'd do it again. Today, Mr. Javaid said, "Of course I regret the speech I gave and some of the things I said and did in my younger years." Yeah, sure. I'll bet you do. 20 years ago, I was naive. I certainly didn't realize how easily some of my actions could be interpreted as being critical of Britain, the best country in the world. You know, it was nearly 2 decades ago now, and I have grown and changed. I love Britain, I love the rich diversity of London, and I love your culture. Boy, does he sound like Khan. Mr. Khan told The Standard, "I have no contact with him for more than a decade. I have always condemned the hideous organizations that promote extremism." Yeah, I'm sure you do. Extremism is a cancer in British society that must be rooted out. I have outlined tough plans to root out extremism and tackle radicalization as Mayor of London. It is understood that the mayoral hopefuls that attended the 2004 event in his capacity as a lawyer and human rights campaigner. He did not comment on when he became aware of Mr. Javaid's involvement with al-Muhajirun. And of course he did. That is the Daily Standard article from February 2006. And then we'll go into this. Let's see where it goes here. Revealed London mayor candidate Sadiq Khan's links to Islamic extremists. Labour prospect was brother-in-law to notorious Maqbool Javaid. Might be Javaid. I think it's Javaid. Labour's candidate for London mayor faced fresh questions over his extremist links after it emerged that his ex-brother-in-law was a hate preacher. Mr. Khan seems to distance himself from jihad monger Maqbool Javaid. But The Sun, and this is The Sun, another UK paper, The Sun can reveal the Tooting MP also had family links to 4 members of the extremist group Hizb ut-Tahrir. This is a little more serious. Speaker turned lawyer Maqbool Javaid was married to the Labour MP's sister Farhat from 1989 until 2011. On Friday, shocking footage of him preaching anti-Western hate emerged. In 2007, Mr. Khan admitted that he was related to 4 other men through the evil Javaid, who were members of the Hizb ut-Tahrir. Hizb ut-Tahrir is a group that I believe they had ties to the 7/7 bombing. The fundamentalist group wanted to turn Britain into an Islamic state under Sharia law. Yeah, Sharia law, here we go. Mr. Khan's former brother-in-law also belonged to the notorious Islamist group al-Muhajirun and spoke alongside band cleric Omar Bakri. Shocking footage of him shows him savaging the West in central London rally in 1997 as the crowd chanted Allahu Akbar. Javaid's name even appears on a fatwa declaring holy war on Britain and the USA. And that's technically that document I was talking about earlier. Mr. Khan claims that I have had no contact with him for more than a decade, but last night the Tories were quick to go on the attack. Well, sure. there should be blood in the water on this, but you got away with it, you slick bastard. Andrew Bridgen, MP, said, yet again, Khan is showing terrible judgment on who he associates with. He's clearly experimented with the wrong company. For a man bidding to take charge of the world's greatest city, there are questions to answer here. When did he find out about these radical views, and why didn't he speak out earlier? Sadiq Khan, who's spoken out about his connections to extremism in the past, said in 2007 that believed his ut-Tahrir have abhorrent views, and there is no love lost between me and distant relations of mine. Okay, it does bring up some questions about how the guy may have treated his sister, but, you know, I mean, there's only so much you can say about that. That is in the Quran, by the way, about beating your wife. Last night, hang on. Last night he added, extremism is a cancer in British society that must be rooted out. Well, that's convenient. Now, come on, behave. There we go. The sad reality is that most British Muslims have come across people with these hideous views, and I've always been honest that I have too. He also said, the safety of all Londoners is my top priority. That's debatable. Adding, I have outlined tough plans to root out extremism and tackle radicalization as the Mayor of London. Maqbool Javaid told Friday's Evening Standard, 20 years ago, I was naive. I certainly didn't realize how easily some of my actions could be interpreted as being critical of Britain, the best country in the world. This is nearly 2 decades ago, and I've grown and changed. I love Britain. I love the rich diversity of London, love our culture. Okay, so a little bit more in that. This next one here is the Daily Mail. Sadiq Khan is not fit to be mayor of London because of his links to extremists, declares Theresa May, as a string of senior Tories turn up the heat on Labour candidate. And this is just April 10th, updated May 6th. Okay, there we go. Senior Tory ministers launched a fresh attack on Labour's candidate for London Mayor yesterday, with Home Secretary Theresa May declaring him unsafe to run London because of his history of defending extremists in his previous job as a human rights lawyer. And also a certain amount of activism he did. Ms. May said Sadiq Khan's defense of extremists such as Babar Ahmad put him in a poor position to protect Londoners at a time when we face significant threat of terrorism. Mr. Ahmad pleaded guilty to conspiracy in providing material support to terrorism in 2013, while Tories also attacked Mr. Khan for comments he made in 2004 when he suggested some elements of Sharia law should be incorporated into British courts. Yes, he did do that. And he says that I don't buy everything. Okay, whatever. Sound like Erdogan. Mr. Khan has repeatedly defended the links to extremists, insisting his job as a human rights lawyer meant that he had to speak on behalf of some unsavory individuals. True, but not true that he did it only for that reason. That there has been a political dimension to this that has been reflected in his actions and his words. The Tories turned up the heat on Labour's mayoral candidate after polls showed their candidate, Zach Goldsmith, continued to fall behind him in the polls. Speaking at the Conservative Party Spring Forum in central London yesterday, outgoing Mayor Mr. Johnson said Sadiq Khan has shared platforms, to put it at its mildest, with some pretty dodgy people with some pretty repellent views. And Mr. Goldsmith and Tory activists said that London must not be governed by a mayor who opposed Top and Surge and whose party leader thinks shooting terrorists is a bad idea. Non-lethal takedowns. Okay. Justice Secretary Michael Gove told the Conservative Spring Forum there can be absolutely no place for Sharia law in our justice system. They're absolutely right. It does not belong in our justice system. Sharia law demeans women and treats them as second-class citizens. These views are incompatible with being mayor of London. But it was an attack from the Home Secretary that made the most significant intervention so far in the Tory attacks in Mr. Khan's past. I worry when I see Sadiq Khan and contortions over whether Babar Ahmad, a man who subsequently convicted of conspiracy and providing material support to terrorism, was a friend of his or not. When I see that he has shared a platform with a group backed by an extremist imam, when I see that he defended someone threatening fire throughout the world as simply using flowery language. Oh, that's real flowery. Oh, yeah, I'll chop your head off. That's flowery talk. It's almost sweet. Flirtatious. Darling, I'll chop your head off. Flowery, huh? Here, let me. Come on, you stupid thing. Okay, flowery language. That's where. This is not the judgment London needs in a mayor at a time when we face a significant threat from terrorism. No, it's not. Mr. Goldsmith told the event, London cannot afford a Labour mayor who is supposed to stop and search, whose party leader thinks that shooting terrorists is a bad idea, a mayor whose career before becoming an MP involved coaching people and suing our police. On this issue, above all others, there can be no ambiguity, no looking both ways. In 2004, Mr. Khan said there are some uncontroversial areas of Islamic law which could easily be applied to the legal system in the UK. No! 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 Doesn't belong there. The spokesman for the Labour mayoral candidate insisted that he was always opposed to Sharia law, but did not clarify what he meant by uncontroversial. No, he didn't. And we can only speculate. And none of it belongs in there. It's not English law. It doesn't belong in the American courts. It's not American law. Imagine that. The spokesman for the Labour mayoral candidate insisted he was always opposed to Sharia law, but did not clarify what he meant by uncontroversial. I'm sorry. Mr. Khan's spokesman said, Sadiq has repeatedly said there's no place for Sharia law in the UK. To suggest otherwise a lie? No, it's not. He did suggest that. That is a quote earlier. This nasty dog whistle attack from the Tories is just their latest desperate attempt to divide Londoners. Yeah, right. Last week, Mr. Khan admitted he wears a badge of shame because of the problems the Labour Party has with anti-Semitism. Well, you know, I won't even go there. The London mayor candidate said Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn could have taken a tougher stance and needs to take a tougher stance. Okay, yeah, sure. The party is kind of late now. Really, it's kind of late. And, you know, it kind of figures, you know, the left and the Muslims both agree on this. And I'm not talking about all Muslims. I'm sorry. I really shouldn't conflate that because it's not, and it really isn't true. But there's a large faction that it is. This is part of the jurisprudence. This is part of the political Islamization of certain aspects of the religion, and that's just the facts. And there is precedent of this. Period. There is a lot of it. There's a sidebar on Corbyn. I won't go into that. He was speaking after Councillor Ayşegül Gürbüz was suspended by the party over messages posted on her Twitter account claiming that Hitler was the greatest man in history and suggesting that Iran could develop a nuclear weapon to wipe Israel off the map. Isn't that lovely? Mr. Corbyn told BBC One's Andrew Marr show, anti-Semitism is absolutely abhorrent and wrong. Anyone that commits any act of anti-Semitism and makes anti-Semitic remarks is auto-excluded from the party, and an inquiry follows immediately. Well, that just hasn't been the way it's turned out, Mr. Corbyn. We have suspended and we will suspend any member that behaves in that way. Well, let's see if you do. So far, no. The allegations over Ms. Gerbuz follow a series of incidents involving anti-Semitic comments by labor activists, including one who was suspended after posting tweets referring to Jews with big noses and describing Hitler as a Zionist god. The chairman of the Oxford University Labour Club recently resigned, saying a large proportion of its members have had some kind of problem with Jews. Corbyn added, "We are absolutely resolute on this. There is no place for any type of racism of any sort within our party, and I will ensure that it is rooted out where it exists." Let's see. But I have to say it is a very small number of cases over the whole country, and we are dealing with it. Luton Councillor Ms. Gerbuz suggested that her sister may have posted the now deleted comment on her Twitter account. Okay, yeah, sure. The dog ate it in my homework. The Mail on Sunday reported that she told the campaign against anti-Semitism it was a joint account I had with my sister, so I don't know if she's gone out, tweeted that, but I'm absolutely appalled right now. Okay. Where I live, we've got a very good cohesion with the Jewish community. I'm absolutely shocked. The Labour Party spokesman said Councillor Gerbuz has been suspended from the Labour Party pending investigation. Last week, Mr. Khan, a Muslim, said he knew what it was like to suffer hate crime and added, "I also know it's unacceptable in 2016 that there's anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. It is with sorrow that I wear that badge of shame." Words are easy. Mr. Khan added, if it means members of my party, senior members of my party, including members of Labour's ruling National Executive Committee, being trained about what anti-Semitism is, then so be it. Yeah. Whatever. I don't like hate crimes. I think they're terrible. You know, you're trying to gauge what a person thinks, and then you're going to punish them for it. That shouldn't be a legal angle. There should be repercussions for having opinions, but at the same time, that they have every right to speak them. And there shouldn't be any arresting people for that. Khan does that. That's his big thing. Speaking at a hustings organized by the London Jewish Forum, Mr. Khan said, said at the outset, I'm embarrassed and sorrowful about anti-Semitism in the party. I think Labour leadership should have taken a tougher stance and needs to take a tougher stance. Okay, lovely. Okay, and the upshot really came about when there was an interview of Khan by Piers Morgan. This is from the Washington Times. Just a few days ago, London mayor grilled by Piers Morgan for inability to attract British jihadis back from Syria. And the issue is, what is you doing with your power to make all Londoners safe? Well, he knows there are many, many, many fighters, and the number that was shot out was 400 that have gone to Syria and have come back. And he knows this. What is he doing about this? Well, he doesn't have the resources to watch them, keep track of them, because that's who's been killing people. Instead, he's going after people who criticize Islam as a hate crime. I'll go ahead. By Douglas Ernst, it was Wednesday, June 7th, 2017. It was about, I don't know, 5 days ago. London Mayor Sadiq Khan faced a grilling this week by journalist Piers Morgan after admitting that hundreds of jihadists back from Syria are not being tracked by police. Good Morning Britain co-host Susan Reid and Mr. Morgan fired a barrage of questions during a Tuesday interview with London's mayor, who blamed budgetary constraints for the city's inability to monitor all citizens back from the ISIS battlefields. They shouldn't even let them in. And yet you see where the problem starts, and it just gets worse. Mr. Khan said just over half of 400 British fighters back in country after fighting with Islamic terrorist groups. Holy cow. So that's 200, okay, not 400. But he knows about these guys. He can even give us a number like this. And he's not watching them? Why can't you instruct the police? Why can't you call Metropolitan Police Chief Cressida Dick right now and say, every one of those people that's come back from a war zone who's in London, I want them followed, Mr. Morgan asked. Good question. Well, let me tell you why. Because the Met Police budget, roughly speaking, 15%, 20% is funded by me, the mayor. The rest comes from the central government. That's irrelevant. Where the money comes from is not relevant. That it has the money is. Okay, if the Met Police is being shrunk and reduced, they've got to prioritize and use their resources in a sensible, savvy way. That begs the question. What is sensible in using those resources? Wouldn't it be getting those 200 people off the streets? They have participated in a war, potentially treasonously. Hello, wake up. Okay, well, I had some technical difficulties and the camera shut down for some reason. At any rate, I'll pick up where I left off. Asked what could be a bigger priority than tracking jihadists in the UK's capital, Mr. Khan declined answer. He didn't answer the question that was put to him by Piers Morgan. What could be more important than keeping track of these terrorists? And Khan didn't answer that question. In fact, very telling that he didn't. Now, however, it seems we are learning of the Met's priorities, and this is really the rub. The force boasted on Thursday of a large amount of resources they dedicated to policing hate crime. The statement from the police said, quote, all hate crimes are reviewed by a detective inspector, and the MPS has also increased specialist investigators within the 32 London Borough Community Safety Units by 30%. Pretty big jump. With more than 900 specialist members of staff dedicated to investigating all hate crime and domestic abuse crimes. Okay. With the average salary of a police officer in London standing at around £38,000, that's what, between 40 and 50,000. This means that the force is dedicating around £35 million of resources to hate crime policing, okay? And the Metropolitan Police have a tweet here. It says, we will not tolerate hate crime in #London, and we will continue to support victims. There's a difference between an opinion and abuse, okay? Hate crimes are thought crimes. I can see where hate and the speech involved with it could be an additional factor in determining the guilt of a person, and also the maybe going towards motive. But I don't think the hate crimes in and of themselves are really very legitimate. Anyway, in February 2017, on the back of reductions in central government resource allocation, the mayor's plans involved a loss of officers for the Met, which then he riled back on, blaming central government, eventually finding 27 million extra pounds from London City Hall to allocate. That's a big chunk of change. And Raheem Kassam, the writer here, tweeted, Sadiq Khan said police were too stretched to follow returnee jihadists, but they can police words, no problem. Okay, so that's really the upshot here. He's going after Islamophobes. You say something bad about the Quran, he'll go after you. That's one of the things that's been happening. The force also noted in its statement that it regards Tell Mama, a group which lost government funding after it was found they were artificially inflating hate crime numbers, as a reliable go-to for hate crime reporting. Doesn't that sound like over here in the States? I mean, this is just amazing. All this conflation of hate crime that turns out to be false. Huh. Gee, what has happened to the Southern poverty law, whatever? I mean, they've gone to hell. They're not even worth listening to anymore. Once upon a time they were. It's tragic. In 2014, Tell Mama lost its case with the Press Complaints Commission when it objected to the original Telegraph reporting, which revealed its dodgy figures. The Telegraph reported that many of their hate crime claims were exaggerations at best, and not out of the 212 Islamophobic incidents reported by Tell Mama, 57% happened only online, which is one of the places where they're trying to go, right? With a further 16% of the incidents not being verified. Only 8% of incidents involved physical targeting, and no attacks were serious enough to require medical treatment. Good record. The group maintains a blog frequently criticizing President Donald Trump, anti-Sharia campaigners such as the Center for Security Policies, Frank Gaffney, and Breitbart.com. Snowflakes. The Met Police statement adds, "We have increased the number of hate crime liaison officers who are a single point of contact for all those who need support after reporting a hate crime, and we've introduced an online hate crime hub to tackle hate crime on social media." Isn't that lovely? Well, again, Raheem Kassam is the writer. He is Breitbart's London chief, editor-in-chief. He is himself a Muslim. And he's highly critical of what's going on here. So, in sum, this whole joke, really, of I shouldn't put it that way. The way I mean it isn't quite like that. More of a play. This whole farce, this whole charade that has been going on, trying to protect Sadiq Khan from criticism. The snowflakes think that he's really something. He's not. He is suspicious, and what he's trying to do, just like what they're trying to do here and everywhere else in EU, with Germany and that kind of nonsense over there, and France and the nonsense there, they're just trying to push it off to the side. They don't want to admit where the real problem is. There's a certain faction among Muslims that is causing the problem. There is a history there. It has to be acknowledged, because otherwise you're misrepresenting the whole thing, and that's what they keep doing. Now they're trying to make the Pulse incident. They're trying to rephrase it so that it wasn't done by a Muslim extremist. Well, the guy's yelling at Allahu Akbar. He made fealty to Al Qaeda. What do you want? And everybody's like, "Oh well, he was gay himself." Well, you know something? A lot of them are. A lot of them are drunks. A lot of them are drug users. A lot of them molest little kids. A lot of them have really guilty consciences. And this is the only way that they're guaranteed to go to heaven, so they feel guilty and they are willing to kill and die in order to go to heaven. That's the thing here. It's just the mechanism of salvation in Islam is somewhat defective, and because of that, a lot of people are paying a price, because these people are willing to kill them to go to heaven. Sinners? Oh yeah. Sin is the great leveler. Really is. We are all sinners, and you know, as a Christian, that's a core part of what I believe, and I know it for a fact because I was pretty good at it, and I'm still pretty good at it when it comes to it. So, as far as it goes, all people sin and come short. And I thank God that Christianity has a much better mediator and mediation in Christ. I won't lecture you on that, but the thing is that Islam is faulty in that way. And that is the reason why you find these guys doing that. And I watched them do it, and they would get drunk and get stoned and chase women and chase boys and chase little girls. All over in Istanbul. They're away not training. When they go back, they'd be so guilt-ridden that they'd want to die. That's what makes fanatics. You think about it. Till next time.